The spin-off series is a great opportunity to cast fresh light on the original characters. So far, Cobra Kai has done a bang-up job of expanding the Karate Kid universe, with both original and recurring characters. But there's one character we think should have gotten more screen time than his 2-episode stint. To boot, they need to bring their main character back into focus. Confused? Keep watching to discover who we're talking about. First things first, who are we referring to? If you haven't figured it out yet, we're referring to none other than the bad boy of karate, Mike Barnes. Portrayed by Kanan, we can't tell if the showrunners intend to bring the Karate Kid Part 3 antagonist back after his 2-episode stint in Season 5. But if you've been paying close attention to the show's story, you might have noticed how it's got the right setup for him to make future appearances. For anyone who still has plenty of catching up to do, the 6th season pivots on the Sekai Taikai as the next challenge that the main characters need to overcome. Now, Mike's never competed on the world stage. Regardless, it would still make sense to have him on board because he has a national championship, unlike Daniel and Johnny, who are only prepared for local karate tournaments. Without Barnes' instruction, all of them, including Chozen, would be out of their element for an international martial arts competition. But how do we know Barnes is still around to help, or, for that matter, around? Well, here's how. Next up, what happened to him after Season 5? We don't know about you, but we clearly remember the show hinting at his future following its conclusion. To elaborate, the character revealed, although jokingly, that he intends to use the Rembrandt stolen from Terry Silver's house to improve his financial conditions. With the money he'll make from the painting, Barnes can either rebuild his furniture store or forge a new path in the karate realm. Whatever the case, it's quite apparent that he'll be back on his feet by the time Cobra Kai returns. As for reconciling with his wife, here's how we think his marital problems will impact his revival on the show. Moving on to where do Johnny, Daniel, and Chozen come in? Currently, Mike has nothing to do with the problems of the protagonists, but seeing that he's lost his marriage could motivate him to find something new, or even old, to kill time. And what better way does a former karate champ have to kill time than taking up karate coaching? But there's a bit of a problem. As we explained, Johnny, Daniel, and Chozen are his golden ticket to becoming a permanent or semi-permanent character. Sadly, they'll have to ask for his help. Not just that, for our predictions to materialize, Barnes will have to accept their offer as well. One of the reasons why we think he'll take them up on their offer is that following his conflict with Silver, he may have secretly rediscovered his passion for the sport. Let's not forget that at one point, he was considered a martial arts prodigy. It's quite hard to fully kill that part of yourself off and not apply them to something as compelling as the Sekai Taikai. Now, some of you might be thinking, why Barnes? Why not some other original character or an original character altogether? All pertinent questions. Let's answer them for you. To add to that, how is he of use to the dojo? One of the reasons why Barnes can be of huge assistance as the dojo's 4th sensei is that no amount of skilled mentors is ever enough. The kids could benefit from having him around, and when you stop considering the movie's 3rd installment, and as we indicated before, Mike was depicted as a much better fighter than Daniel. Better yet, his fight with Chozen proved that he was also at par with him. He deserves a comeback because he's more than capable of serving as an equal, yet somewhat superior partner to the 3 mentors we're used to seeing on the show. A newer mentor's introduction would not land the same way because they'll have to go back into his backstory to make him relevant. The same reasoning applies to bringing back a different oldie from the movies. Nobody has the time to rewatch the films to familiarize themselves with the characters. We can't speak for you, but we don't. Speaking of familiarity, now that we've established Barnes' relevance to the new season's plotline, it's time to take a look at how the show's lost sight of who its main character is. Come along, let's talk about what has changed. We all know that the show initially mirrored the original movie with Daniel. As a result, it pivoted on Miguel Diaz's new kid arc, making Johnny Lawrence the new Mr. Miyagi. We agree that it also focused on a relatively large set of characters, but you'll have to admit that Diaz was always the prime character. That is, until the third season rolled around. We'll see how it impacted his storyline. But first, let us air out our problems with the fifth season. Now, before you come for us, yes, the fifth season was a total hit, with great action sequences and power shifts. It's just that Daniel, Chozen, and Johnny, facing the power of Terry Silver, ended up heavily sidelining Miguel. The legacy characters deserve to be in the spotlight, but not at the cost of undercutting the most important character. With the fifth season's problems out of the way, let's look at where this sidelining began. What's more, where did it all go downhill? We'll have to circle back to Season 2's school fight to see where the character's downward spiral began. We're not going to reiterate it because we feel it's cemented in everyone's memory. After all, it was possibly the best sequence in the show's history. But as great as it was, the fight concluded Miguel's role as the show's main character. This was reflected in that, come Season 3, his critical injury, a major cliffhanger, just by the way, was resolved in a few episodes. And that's not even the worst, because by the time he fully recovered, the show had already moved onto a larger set of characters and various storylines. On top of that, one of the reasons why it might have happened, the mention of various storylines reminds us that the show's format has shifted greatly, specifically in comparison to the first two seasons. You might have noticed how it's no longer about Johnny alone. Instead, Cobra Kai has grown into an ensemble cast series in which various characters get their time to shine. For instance, Robbie Keane and Sam LaRusso are now equally important to the show's storyline as Miguel was in Season 1. And get this, of late, Tony and Hawk have also been receiving a lot of screen time. Considering that each one of these characters has their rivalries and arcs, a 10-episode, half-hour series like Cobra Kai only has so much time for Diaz. Another thing that we need to keep in mind is that, being a spin-off, the series also needs to celebrate the returning movie characters, especially when you consider just how much the Daniel LaRusso trilogy has and continues to contribute to the show's development. For example, Terry Silver's plan in Cobra Kai Season 5 was a continuation of his Karate Kid 3 story. These guys can't simply be ignored in favor of a character who is a long way to go when earning the same popularity as these oldies. That said, and for all our Miguel fans, here's how the show can bring him back into focus without disrupting everything else it's got going for itself. Last but not least, how can they make him the focus again? After treating him like an afterthought for the past few seasons, the newer season can bring him into focus by giving him more time. Before you ask, yep, it's perfectly possible, because with Terry now defeated, Kreese and Sensei Kim are the only villains left. This allows the showrunners to downscale the story and go back to basics in the next season. Simply put, they can now easily dedicate more screen time to Miguel. One more instance in which Diaz can become the show's main focus again is if this season turns out to be the last. Admit it, there's no better way for them to conclude the show than for his storyline to come full circle. In saying this, we are not suggesting that his story be reversed, or for that matter, he goes through all the same challenges from Season 1. That's just absurd. We only expect them to return to the show's previous model to give it a more appropriate and fulfilling send-off. Do you feel? For example, making him win the Sekai Taikai would be a great way to achieve all this and more. That's a wrap for this video. How do you feel about Barnes making a comeback as the main character? What other characters from the original films would you like to see on the show? And are you satisfied with Miguel Diaz's progress on the show? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.